Tala Moana Exiles. We're going to talk about some math today. In playing this character and dealing with poisons in this game, um, I have run into such a large amount of confusing information. How do poisons work? How do I get more damage from them? Is Withered good? Is Chaos damage good? Uh, just on and on. There's a lot of conflicting stuff out there. There are some really good videos and resources, and there's a lot of confusing tooltips. But I haven't seen it all broken down like really crystal clear and simplified in a way that lets you know, like, okay, here are the things that I need to do to make this character do more damage. And here's the choices that I can make. Are they worth it? Are they not? We're going to go through all of that today. And we're going to get dirty into some spreadsheets. It's going to be really great. And I think by the time you walk away from this, you'll have a much more concise and simplified understanding of exactly what makes this character tick. And you'll know exactly how to improve your character as you go through the passive skill tree, as you're looking at gear, as you're using currency to enhance that gear. You'll have a real lock on these are the steps that I need to take to make this damage get bigger. So let's get into it. And like I said, we're going to get into some spreadsheets. So let's start talking about damage. And right after this first one, we'll talk about bows. Stay tuned to the end where we talk about Withered and whether it's worth it. So how does a poison dot get its damage calculated? This is an imaginary weapon that we have here. It deals all 5 damage types in one hit. Okay, so it deals a total hit of 500. And in this imaginary hit, there is an even spread of 100 of each of the damage types applied: physical, chaos, electric, fire, cold. The game calculates the damage of the resulting poison of that hit, like a poison burst arrow or a gas cloud hit, and we'll talk about that. By taking the physical and the chaos portions of that hit, taking 20% of their hit value and adding those two values together. So we have 20% of 100 physical, 20% of 100 chaos, 20 and 20, add those together, we get a resulting dot of 40. And that is the damage number that it's going to use to apply the poison that we put on the enemy from that hit. So we will do 500 from the hit, and then the dot will tick for 40 damage for each stack that hit applied. And when you're talking about stacks, that's another like kind of confusing thing, but one hit can apply multiple stacks. And so that number can be used multiple times. Now, if you, for example, have a dual string bow and you have scattershot on it, you will get 4 arrows. It will do 2 calculations, one for each arrow. 4 for each, or 4 calculations. And 2 arrows, 2 shots each, 4 hits. And those 4 dots will each get their own version of this applied, because as you know, your bow doesn't do like a static amount of DPS each hit, right? There's a range. It says X to X physical damage, X to X lightning damage, or whatever. So whatever that hit ends up being, it will then do the 20% calculation off of that. This is all great, but like, what does it mean when you're in game and you're looking at a bow and you're thinking, is this good? Like, which of these weapons is better for me? Okay. Now, the first time you see one of these, you're going to see chaos damage of this thing. And your brain, especially your PoE 1 player, is going to go, chaos, poison, good, not good. It's actually terrible. And I'll explain why. So we talked about the fact that there's a physical component and a chaos component, right? It's 20% of each. It doesn't matter which is bigger or smaller. And so you can effectively just say, add the two together, take 20% out of that total, right? So think of it as one hit that has a physical and a chaos component to it. The problem with this bow is that I can't increase this number. I can't make it bigger. There is no physical way to make that chaos damage more. There's a few nodes that might apply, but not to the extent of something like this. This bow has 80% increased physical damage and a further 40% increased physical damage due to the runes. So the hit from this bow of physical damage is huge, and its chaos damage is 0. I don't care. I don't need chaos damage. Well, I mean, it would be great, like, that would be nice, but if we look at this bow right here, the advanced cultist bow, sorry, not the bow I was showing, but the advanced cultist bow that has the chaos damage on it, it's right here. There is nowhere in this list that says plus chaos. There are no mods that you can apply through crafting or drops that will increase the chaos damage of this bow. And even if it has a physical damage component to it, it is not the bigger value. It will never be the bigger value. You will never see, like, on this particular bow, you will never see, like, max 69 chaos damage and a bigger number of max physical damage. You'll see a really small number of physical damage. And so when you apply your runes and your mods and everything to increase the physical damage, and your skill tree nodes to increase the physical damage, you're always scaling the smaller number. Whereas a bow like this, where 61 max physical damage, you can increase that number by a lot. Better than 100%, easily. Just through mods, and then on top of that, through skill nodes, right? So you can ramp that 61 up a lot, which will then, coming back to our spreadsheet over here, sorry, not that one, this one of my screens. When we come back to here, and we say, which of these numbers do I care about? This is the one that I care about. And this one, for all intents and purposes, just doesn't exist. We just don't care. We don't care about chaos damage. Now getting into Withered and some other things, we could talk about the resulting poison being buffed or damage to the boss being buffed by chaos abilities. That's the thing. But in terms of the raw hit that will get us this number, chaos damage, for all intents and purposes, does not exist in your life. In terms of what is on your weapon, what's on your bow, and what's going to make this initial number bigger. So that, I think, is the most important takeaway from this. Only do Phys. Okay, Phys is king when you're talking about the initial hit and the resulting damage. Okay, so now, what about magnitude? Like, there's Phys damage, but, like, what about magnitude? Because that's a thing that you get on your passive skill tree, right? There's all these nodes here that are plus X amount of magnitude to poisons you inflict, right? There's a bunch of them. Just search poisons and you will see them. Okay, what about it? Which one of them is better? Is physical better or is magnitude better? How should I evaluate this? This right here is going to show you exactly how they work. So let's say we have another imaginary hit. It hits for 1,000. The hit damage multiplier that we can get from passive nodes, mods, etc., is giving us currently nothing. We just have a bow. We're in first act. We have a bow. Nothing is helping us out in terms of making that projectile damage bigger. The base magnitude, as we said, is 20% of the physical damage. Okay, and then the magnitude multiplier from your skill tree is just 1 because we haven't taken any nodes for that yet. Okay. So the resulting poison damage is 200, and that's what's going to be on our stacks. So let's make one of them bigger. Let's say that we get 10% from our first skill tree node that we take here. So do 1.1, and that's going to bump this up to 220. Nice. Let's say instead, I don't trust the physical damage. I'm going to go for magnitude because that says poison on it. Oh, I get the same number. If I take 10% here or 10% here, I get exactly the same thing. Interesting. What if I just double it straight up? That gets us to 400. And if we double it here, we're going to get 400. Okay? And now, if we just double both, it's going to be exactly double what we would get from doubling them individually. So, what is the takeaway here? Phys is the same as mag. It's the exact same thing for all practical purposes. You take 10% of one, you take 10% of the other. They're both helping you out in equal regard. And so it makes it really simple once you know specifically that there's no like decision mania here because you know that this is going to work no matter which one you take. Great. So anything that affects your physical damage, projectile damage, your bow damage is going to increase these numbers. Poison or ailment's magnitude is going to also increase these numbers in equal regard and get you those nice big juicy DPS numbers that you're looking for. Okay, cool. Let's talk about stacks, baby. All right, so there's several skills within the tree. There's also an ascendancy point that increases and there's skill gem that increase the level of stacks you can get from poisons. Well, are they worth it? Like, is more stacks more? Is it bigger and better? Well, yes, to a certain extent. So here we have the poison damage per stack. Obviously, always this 200 that we're talking about. The number of stacks right here. The resulting damage. And here we're calculating the increase over the previous. So 200, add another stack, we get 400. That's a 100% increase. Add another stack, that's a 50% increase. Add another stack, 33. And down we go. So this is the very definition of diminishing returns. You're getting half the value from each additional stack. Okay? This is the first one you can get, Comorbidity. It's a support gem, and you just put it on your Poison Burst arrow in Act 1, and you're good to go. You have just doubled your damage. Good job. Second Ascendancy, after that, it's really easy to get 6 once you just double all of your poison stacks. And this is, for the rest of the game, this is kind of where you're probably sitting, and it's a nice sweet spot. As you get an end game, you're probably going to be looking at more stacks as you get deeper into the tree. So, it's diminishing returns, but more is still more. So, seeing this, I think it's easy to say, like, okay, I can evaluate whether, like, reaching all the way over there for that +1 stack is worth it to me. What else do I get on the way? Like, another set of stacks is not always going to be the biggest boost to your DPS. And just knowing that you get diminishing returns is a nice thing to be able to evaluate your build and make decisions. Again, there's nothing bad here. It's just sort of informative way to look at it. Let's talk about other abilities. I've seen a lot of videos and seen a lot of people talk about, like, just gas arrow, and that's all I have, and that's all I'm going to cast, and I don't want to cast anything else. One button build. Well, okay, that's nice, that's cool. But are we leaving DPS on the table, right? Poison Burst arrow does a hit damage of 1,000. It then puts on a stack of 200, assuming you have maybe Comorbidity or Ascendancy point. Let's say you get 2 stacks for resulting 400 poison damage. In the first second that hit, you did 1,400 damage. Okay? And then maybe nothing, and then maybe you hit it again for another 1,400. Okay? Cool. That's nice. Gas arrow. There is a hit that gets calculated and then thrown away and not applied to whatever monster you hit with it. Okay? So this is a big fat goose egg right here in the first column for gas arrow. You get the 200 poison damage. Assuming you have, like, dual string and some stacks, it's, let's say you got 4 stacks on there, which is pretty standard. So your resulting poison damage is 800 in the first second. And then every second you get more and more and more, and it ramps up, right? So this is, like, really great. Toxic Growth, unpopular skill. If you hit 2 pustules on the boss and you have the Plague Bearer buff, which and you poison these stacks with your gas arrow, you poison the pustules on the floor, that doubles the damage. The PB buff then doubles the damage again, and you have 2 down, so that's the last 2. So you're going to get 8,000 because it's going to calculate off of our 1,000 hit, and we're going to go up to 8,000 damage in the first second. I just have a hard time understanding why you would turn all of this down. Like, you lay down your gas arrow here, and assuming that you don't need to put a mark or, throw out a vine arrow or whatever else you need to do, or dodge, roll away, let's just say that you're just sitting here plunking away on the boss. I laid down my gas arrow. Now what? Like, now what am I going to do with my time? Well, I would like to put some more damage on the boss, please. So, anyway, just some things to think about in terms of, like, are these abilities worth having on your bar, worth casting? Totally up to you, but you can think about the math this way. All right, let's get to the last thing. And I think this has been quite a talking point, and quite a point of confusion for a lot of people. It's a point of confusion for me, coming from PoE 1. I immediately, Poison Withered. Yeah, they go together like peas and carrots. They might not, and people have been kind of debating, is the skill worth it? So I'm just going to try to break it down here. So let's say we have a hit of 1,000. The hit damage multiplier on that, just left alone, with, again, this is a white bow, nothing on it, is 1. Base magnitude, again, 20%. Magnitude multiplier 1, because we don't have any skill points. The resulting poison damage 200. You know the drill by now. Let's talk about our Withered multiplier, because we're adding this in. We don't have Withered right now. It's not on the boss. So our Withered multiplier is 1. I mean, it's not adding any extra damage. And so the resulting poison damage of all of that is our 200 number that we are so fond of by now. So let's add like some skill points that basically, or some bow mods, whatever. Like the first 3 skill points that you can get really around projectiles damage, it's 10, 10, and 40. So you could get 60 right out of the gate in the first act very quickly. So it's easy to say that we can easily double this, but this could be much higher, right? So I just put a 2 in here as like a easy number to work with. So that's going to bump us up to 400. Let's say that instead of that we went for magnitude, same difference. That's going to give us a multiplier of 2, same 400, okay? Very easy to get early on with skill points. If instead of that we put down a totem and applied Withered to the boss, it's going to give us a 50% increase, which sounds great, but it's less than that 300, right? And that's all we're going to get off of it. And it's only going to affect this portion of the damage, right? This 200 right here, the poison damage that is ticking away on the boss, will be increased by up to 50% depending on Withered stacks. We'll just call it 50%. Okay. As you go through the tree, like right now, I've never done Withered, because early on I just decided it wasn't worth it. I don't have a bunch of int. My character is in maps, and I have 27 int. Okay, just enough to run a couple of support gems. The minimum I think is 65 int to run the totem. That is the easiest way to put Withered on something. So you're giving up 9 to 12 travel nodes of dex, because I'm doing a dex stacking build, to put into int to run one ability. So I'm giving up evasion, because I get evasion per dex. I get accuracy, obviously. I have a node giving me attack speed per dex, and I have to cast another ability. So these are all the, to me, I'm just saying, like, when you're thinking about whether you want Withered, this is the trade-off, right? These are the things that you are giving up or have to do to get that ability. What do you get? You get a capped increase. It's never going to be above 50%. And you get more mana. So that's nice. It's cool. Is it worth it? I mean, more is more. It's hard to say, honestly. I think it's hard. It depends on what kind of build you're doing, specifically whether you mind the totem or not. If you find the totem annoying, then it's really hard to say that this 50% is worth it when there's so many other ways to increase the damage of these skills, right? And I would just throw out a alternative to this, which is Voltaic Mark. It shocks, which when it shocks, it gives a 20% bonus to all damage applied to that creature. And then that is further aided by a 30% on top that the Voltaic Mark shock specifically gets. So it's 1.23, which can be boostable. And I mean, it's just a 100 mark. Like, there's nothing special about it. You just hit the button and it's on. There's no totem. You don't have to stack a bunch of int for it. Like, there's nothing really special about it. It's just a damage boost. And then it gives like an explosion, if the monster dies, to everybody around it, which can additionally shock. Great. Like, is that way worse than this, given all of this? It's up to you. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not telling you it's bad. I'm just giving you the numbers and giving you the maths, and you can decide what to do from there. So let me think if there's anything else that I want to talk about. I don't think so. I find this build really slick. I find using poisons really easy, especially with the addition of things like, Poison Burst and Toxic Growth, to just, again, add damage. We're just layering damage on top. Toxic Growth is nice burst when you want to use it, and Poison Burst is nice to apply additional debuffs and just do damage to a thing. So That's what I'm doing. I hope you've enjoyed. Hope you got something out of this. And yeah, hope everybody's having fun. Have a good one. See you later.